of Tech Forum's Sunday Tech Talk.
This meeting is being recorded.
I welcome Dr. Sanjeev Zope from Institution of Engineers. So I will request Mr. Sanjeev Zope to introduce the Institution of Engineers. Over to Sanjeev Zope. Sanjay Zope.
Good morning to you all.
Yeah. Good morning.
I welcome you all on behalf of Institution of Engineers, Pune Local Center. As you are aware, Institution of Engineers is a body came in existence around 140 years back, and it encompasses around 15 disciplines of the engineering like electrical, electronics, instrumentation, civil, etc. And Pune Local Center is the first local center established by the institution first time in India. And we have got a very good location at our building, and center is established in Jangli Maharaj Road. And we have a lot of facilities. All are those who want to utilize it for the dissemination of sciences or engineering knowledge to the large scale, they can utilize these facilities. That's all. And I welcome Mr. Sarolkar, Dr. Sarolkar on behalf of the Institution of Engineers, Pune Local Center. I request Sri Rabde sir to take it further.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjay Zope, and thank you very much for the nice introduction. And we welcome members of Institution of Engineers for this initiative taken up jointly by Institution of Engineers, Pune Local Center and Tech Forum. Friends, we are getting associated with different organizations for different topics. So now, after association with Institution of Engineers, we will be also associating with Pune Management Association, PMA, and we will be talking about various subjects, management related aspects. And next presentation will be live on 15th of October. It will be on branding through product design, and speaker is none other than Mr. Vinod Joshi, founder, Intelligent Process Solutions and Director, Marketing, Tentive 4. So that's going. The announcement will come in the due course. Today's speaker is Dr. Sarolkar, and he is going to share about the geothermal energy and how it can be harnessed, what are their commercial aspects, and what are the opportunities involved in harnessing this energy. I will request our EC member, Mr. Nandu Sarolkar, to introduce Dr. P.B. Sarolkar. Over to Nandu.
Good morning, everybody. Government of India has committed for decarbonization and promotion of renewable energy. Geothermal energy is also a part of renewable energy, and it will definitely help in decarbonizing the planet. Mr. Prafulla Sarolkar has passed his MSc Tech Applied Geology from Nagpur University in 1977. He completed his post-graduation diploma in geothermal energy from Auckland University, and he did his doctorate in geology from Nagpur University. He has carried out geothermal resources investigation at Tatapani, Chhattisgarh, Chumathang, Ladakh, Bakreshwar, West Bengal, and Hot Spring of West Coast in Maharashtra. He is also an expert on panel of Ministry of Mines and Ministry of New and Renewable Energy and Geological Survey of India. He was also a consultant to NTPC for renewable projects. He has presented papers in World Geothermal Congress 2000 and 2015, published more than 25 papers in national and international journals, including one at Stanford University, in Auckland University also. He retired as a Deputy Director General, Policy Support System from Geological Survey of India, Kolkata, after 36 years of service. I welcome Mr. Prafulla Sarolkar to give speech on the geothermal energy. And Mr. Vilas, I hand over to you
Thank you very much, Nanduji, for nice introduction of Dr. Prafulla Sarolkar. Yes, this aspect we have not discussed yet in our energy group, and this is going to be a abundant energy available like fossil fuel. Of course, the doctor will take survey of the availability and how it can be harnessed and how it can be utilized for the betterment of mankind. So without spending much time, I will request Dr. Prafulla Sarolkar to start his presentation. Thank you.
Good morning and happy Navratri to everybody. This is
Morning, sir.
this is a new subject actually, and though it is a sort of alternate energy, it's yet to take off, particularly in India. So today I will be talking about geothermal energy in Indian perspective. The different sources of energy generally we commonly get, they are fossil fuels, coal, petroleum, natural gas, and coal bed methane. And they are presently ruling over most of the world. The alternate energy which we generally utilize, they are mostly hydropower in all over the world and nuclear in most of the countries wherever it is available. Nowadays, wind, solar, and tidal also is coming up very fast. Particularly in India, we have very good number of solar and wind plants. And geothermal is also taking up, and the government of India has decided to push up the geothermal energy because particularly this is useful in interior parts of the country. Other new technologies, biodiesel, biomass, hydrogen cells, and electric vehicles, particularly electric vehicles are also coming up very fast in India. And Nitin Gadkari is pushing it very hard. And I think it's going to be next part of, we can say, fuel for the vehicles. The present scenario of energy in particularly in India is we are totally mostly dependent on fossil fuels. The coal, lignite, diesel, gas and diesel, they are forming this is the generation capacity in 2022. 2,36,065 megawatts is the generation capacity from fossil fuels. Renewable is hydro is 46,850. Wind is 41,000. Solar has taken up quite well, 59,303. And the rest of the energies, they are comparatively meager. Nuclear is also quite good, 6,780. So total renewable is 1,69,708. This is the installed capacity. So besides this, beside hydro, wind and solar, we are particularly government is also trying to take geothermal in a large scale because though it is a mostly associated with the interior part of the country, it is useful for the local, we can say scenario like Ladakh or Himalayan belt. So what is a geothermal energy? Geothermal energy is defined as a heat stored within the earth. That is the interior of the earth. This is a very deep source energy, and it is a permanent source of energy because when at the time of earth was formed, the heat was stored with different we can say rock types, and some at some particular places it gets, we can say, way to come up to the surface, and that heat is utilized as a geothermal energy source, and that is called as a geothermal energy. Geothermal energy is very site specific, and that is basically mostly associated with the hill belt or hilly terrain. So it is much useful in remote areas. It is renewable energy because the heat source is deep in terrain and it is within the earth, and there is a continuous, we can say, supply of the heat from the interior of the earth. It is a renewable energy. It is an environmental friendly energy because we are actually not burning any fossil fuel. Technologically, it is feasible. Geothermal plants are available, installed now more than 100 years, particularly in the Italy. and they are mostly available in countries which I will be giving you, just like USA, Italy, Japan, Philippines, Indonesia, Turkey, Mexico, China, New Zealand, and Iceland and Kenya. These are the countries which are actually adopting geothermal energy power generation on a very large scale. What are the types of geothermal resources? Geothermal resources, there are two different types. That is, one is hot water, which generally we see everywhere, and steam. Hot water is associated with steam. That is called as a two-phase energy. The single-phase geothermal is either single steam. The way we get in Yellowstone National Park, that is a single, only steam-based geothermal energy, or hot water. If we go to Ganeshpuri near Mumbai, we are getting the hot water. There is not much of steam. That is called a single-phase hot water-based energy. Third is the dry phase. There is no water and no steam. The heat which is stored deep interior in the earth, in the rock types, and there is no source to come up, take out that heat to the surface. That is called as a dry phase. That is mostly available in Australia. Geothermal then site is classified based on the temperatures also. The high temperature geothermal site is called as a more than 200 degrees centigrade temperature we generally get there. Intermediate is 125 degrees to 250 degrees centigrade. Most of our Indian fields fall in this. And low is less than 25 degrees, 125 degrees centigrade. So what is the we can say important, rather geothermal? Geothermal is a new and alternate and continuous source of energy. The heat is stored in the rock, which is brought to the surface by deep circulation of water. And geothermal energy, that is why it's called as a renewable energy also, because the circulation of water is almost continuous. And geothermal energy is environmental friendly because there is no burning of the fossil fuels. This is the mechanism of, we can say, geothermal field, and then generation of the electricity through this. So this is a deep interior source. It is quite deep, maybe 20 kilometers or 30 kilometers. And we have in the surface of the earth, there are fractures. So whatever water we get by precipitation, by rainfall, by groundwater circulation, that follows these fractures to the deep interior. As it goes down, it collects the heat because there is a heat source, the temperature is higher at depth. And as it collects the heat, it becomes a hot, it gains the temperature. And then with some another fracture, or we can say conduit, which is also within the interior of the earth, because of various geological processes, what we call as a fault or fractures, etc. This comes up. So we get this hot water at the shallow level. And if necessary, we put boreholes to collect this water. There is some problem here anyway. And this water is collected through the boreholes, brought to the surface, put to the power plant, and it is used for the generation of the electricity. So there are a number of geothermal power plants, particularly in USA, New Zealand, Indonesia. So where we are getting this geothermal energy mostly associated throughout the world. USA, particularly California part and central part, that is Yellowstone National Park, they are the main centers of geothermal energy. Japan and Philippines, they are the major countries producing geothermal energy. Hawaii Island is also one major one, because wherever there is a volcano, there is enough of heat in the interior of the earth, and that is tapped as a energy source. Then New Zealand is also one more major country where geothermal energy is harnessed quite a lot. This is a schematic diagram of hard rock, dry hard rock means where there is no water, there is no steam, but there is heat. This mostly we are finding in the Australia. The deep interior, there is a heat source that may be 5 or 6 or even 10 kilometers deep, but generally 5 to 6 kilometers deep is there. And there is no mechanism or there is no fracture or other geological entity to take this heat or water to the surface. So there is no actually groundwater source here. In this case, what we do, from the surface we drill the borehole. These boreholes from the surface we are drilled, we pump the water or air, and this is called as a hydrofracturing because of high pressure and high pressure of air as well as water. And sometimes there is artificial blasting also at the bottom. This hydrofracturing causes fractures, and this water at high pressure is pumped up from the side boreholes, taken up to the surface, and then it is used for the power generation. This is called as a hot dry rock, we can say geothermal field. So how to identify the geothermal? A geothermal area is characterized by the following manifestations. That is a hot water spring. They are very common in most of the geothermal areas. The temperatures vary from 30 to 35 degrees centigrade depending on the terrain, up to 97 degrees centigrade in India. There is a steam emission in most of the high temperature geothermal fields, that is called as steam emission or fumaroles. And because there is a continuous seepage of water, we generally get marshland developed along with the geothermal area. And then what we call as a mud pool or mud volcano, because of continuous coming upwelling of the hot water and sometimes the gases, this marshland is converted into muddy area, and then we call it as a mud pools. And there is a deposition of secondary minerals, that is silica, sulfur, arsenic, borax, calcite on the surface. And one more major part, and this is a sort of hazard we can say, at places where there is a lot of geothermal activity, lot of steam is coming up, lot of water is movement is there. Sometimes local slump or subsidence is also possible. It may be a smaller one, but we certainly can get local subsidence of few feet or few we can say meters in the geothermal area. This is a geothermal area in the Japan, and here we can see the steam emission. On the side of it, we can see the yellowish or slightly orange, that is sulfur and arsenic precipitation. The terrain is generally very hot, and it's very hazardous to go out and reach at the geothermal site. This is a steam and water coming up. This is a, we can say, sort of geyseric activity, and this is also very common, particularly in a very hot dry rock, hot geothermal fields. This is the Yellowstone area. Here we can see the steam, we can see the water flow also. And these white water patches we are seeing, they are actually the secondary deposition of silica or calcium or such type of minerals. And this is a continuous source. Yellowstone geyser is actually running for last, I think, more than tens of thousands of years. So geothermal is a continuous activity. If we get geothermal, there are a number of different type of actually activities we have to carry before proving a field. That is called as exploration. I will not go into the deep details of the exploration. But after completing all the exploration activity, what we get is the subsurface temperature profile we get, and we get two dimensional plan or profile of that particular area, where we can get such type of diagram. This red area is a very hot geothermal area. It is surrounded by the comparatively lesser temperature area. Then there is a very large area containing the hot geothermal water or hot geothermal rocks. And then there is normal, we can say normal rock type. So this type of diagrams, we are actually with different type of exploration activities, including drilling, we prepare. And this red area that is called as a plume or a core of geothermal area, that is utilized for drilling purposes and getting the hot water to the surface. Based on this diagram, the actual surface area, subsurface area, and subsurface dimensions of the geothermal field, they are actually by computer simulation are prepared, and such type of diagram that is called as a 3D geothermal reservoir surface diagram that is prepared, and this diagram is basically useful for planning the geothermal field development, exploration activity, etc. So we have got the geothermal surface, we have got the geothermal activity, and we are going for the production of the geothermal area for power generation, etc. So what is the actually reason why we call geothermal as an environmental friendly area or environmental friendly energy? The reason is simple. If we compare the carbon intensity of the electricity generation of various fuels, we find that coal has the maximum carbon emission, CO2 emission, followed by oil, followed by natural gas, and the non-conventional energies are renewable alternate energies. You see solar PV is having much less. Geothermal is also having comparable to the solar PV, and biomass, nuclear, wind, etc. are still having much lesser intensity of carbon CO2 generation. So that is why geothermal is called as an environmental friendly area. But is it completely environmental friendly? No. No energy is completely environmental friendly. Only thing, the overall intensity of the environmental pollution is much less in, we can say, non-conventional resources. So geothermal also has some minor constraints, particularly the hot water contains chloride, and the water contains from the deep sources, so it may contain fluorine and arsenic content also. So wherever there is geothermal activity going on, we have to check for the content of fluorine and arsenic, and if it is more than the prescribed limit, we have to take measures to, we can say, eliminate or mitigate it. Then there is a deposition of silica. What white patches we have seen in the Yellowstone National Park, they are deposition of silica and calcite. And then if it is a large scale, it actually obscures the total surface landscape. And there are some surface secondary products like sulfur, borax, cesium, and partially lithium also is dissolved in the geothermal water. What we have seen as the fumaroles. So geothermal water also contains dissolved gases. What are they? They are carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, NO2. NO2 is comparatively much less. Sulfur dioxide is developed because of deep interior reaction of hot water with the different rock, particularly minerals and rocks. Then hydrogen, nitrogen, argon, helium, and sometimes ammonia is also found. And as I initially told you, the land deformation is also sometimes followed when there is a lot of large-scale geothermal activity. Ultimately, with all these things, if we go for the electricity generation from the geothermal, what are the comparative cost? These costs are particularly for the countries where geothermal is well established, like USA or New Zealand, and they are compared with the non-conventional energies, other non-conventional energy or conventional energy sources. I won't say that they are very immediately applicable in India, but if we see per megawatt production cost for geothermal is around $40, that is 0.04 cents, 0.4 cents per unit. It comes around 3 to 4 rupees in Indian terms. But these costs are basically for the USA. Solar is 5 to 6 rupee, means $5 to $6. That is around 4 to 5 rupees. Now it is much less, no doubt, depending on the area and depending on the scale of the plant. So geothermal is particularly in a large scale production where there is a established technology and established resources. It's competitive with the other non-conventional energy resources. These are the levelized cost. No doubt the cost here they are showing higher than in the previous slide. But the reason is particularly the cost of geothermal energy depends on the type of resource, then area, the location of the particular geographical location of the resource, and temperature. That is why the cost of geothermal energy generation varies from place to place depending on the resource, and it varies quite a large, we can say from 4 cents to 8 cents to even 10 cents also. This is for international, we can say, geothermal resources. In India, we have to yet, means there is some exploration we have already carried out, but we have to go for a large scale exploration. That is why this cost will be, I think, much comparatively higher. So geothermal energy requires exploration, that is geophysical exploration, then drilling. Drilling is the basic activity to get the water from the deep interior surface to the deep interior reservoir to the surface. So drilling boreholes of geothermal, they are 3 to 4 kilometers sometimes, and it's quite expensive. So the initial cost of geothermal plant is more than the other power plants. But as the water which we are supposed to be called as a fuel for the energy, that is a continuous one, and there is no further fuel cost once drilling activity is completed and we start getting the hot water or steam on the surface. And then comparatively maintenance is also less. That is why in the long term period, geothermal power is cost effective. So we require long life as well as the larger capacity to have a geothermal power plant of comparative economic, we can say, perspective. So geothermal power plants particularly have a very, very long life. In Ladakh, Italy, the power plant is running for last almost 100 years and they have been expanding it continuously, regularly. So once you establish a geothermal field or geothermal power plant, it has a long life and it is a sustainable for years. So automatically your cost benefit also will increase with the plant of the life. The cost of geothermal power varies from 4 to 9 cents in USA. But India, as we have to start at the initial stage, the cost will be around 10 cents or more. Initially, when we had calculated some few years ago, the cost was around 8 rupees. Presently, it will be 8 to 10 rupees depending on the dollar. And this cost depends on the type of drilling activity we do, the type of resource we are getting. If we are getting hot water and steam mixed resource, then the efficiency of the power is comparatively less power plant. So cost will be more. And that is why presently there are activities going on initially to have a, we can say, sort of demonstration plants for the geothermal, so that private entrepreneurs and government also will get confidence and they will start looking into the power generation or development of geothermal energy. One major presently constraint is whether it's a deep drilling activity or whether it's a geothermal power plant. It is not manufactured indigenously. We have to import it, and that also adds to the cost of geothermal in India. Besides in power generation, what are the other uses of the geothermal energy? They are mostly power generation. Then it is used in refrigeration, greenhousing, what we call as a space or building heating. And there are some industrial uses like paper and pulp industry aquaculture, and one of the most important uses, what we call as a tourism, spa, hot water bath, etc. So in India, what are the possible uses? Binary cycle power generation, agriculture and aquaculture, tourism and spa, which is going on everywhere. If you go to Joshimath or if we go to Ganeshpuri in West Coast, the main use is tourism only, and it is used for the hot water as resources are used for bathing and sightseeing. So this is one of the major uses. Refrigeration and cold storage, then industrial application, along with the desalination. Nowadays, this desalination is also taking quite a good role in geothermal areas. Greenhouses and extraction of rare metals like cesium, borax, sulfur, etc. What is the mechanism of geothermal plants? There are two types of geothermal plants, that is a binary cycle power plant and steam turbine power plant. I am initially giving you binary cycle power plant because in India, most of the resources are low, we can say intermediate temperature, around 150 degrees centigrade or 180 degrees centigrade. So binary cycle power plant is utilized here. The hot water from the deep interior, it is carried out to the surface by drilling into boreholes, and it is put into the heat exchanger. In heat exchanger, organic fluid like isopentane or which is having a low temperature boiling point is utilized, and it is converted into the vapor. That vapor is utilized in the turbine to drive the turbine and to generate the electricity. The overall efficiency of this is around 10 to 12%. Nowadays it is increased also. Sometimes they say it is 15% also, but around 10 to 12%. And that is why the overall power generation by this method is less, but because the temperature is also less, automatically the overall output is comparatively less. This is the schematic diagram of, we can say, binary cycle generation. These are the heat exchangers. From heat exchangers, this water comes up, it goes to the turbine, and it straightway is utilized to drive turbine. The heat energy is utilized. It depends on the temperature of effluent water that is fixed actually. Suppose the inlet is 50 degrees, here it is inlet is approximately 90 degrees centigrade. The outlet will be around 40 to 50 degrees centigrade. Then that steam, which is vapor, which is means cool to 50 degrees centigrade, is again passed through heat exchangers to preheat it, and then again utilized in the turbine. So it is a sort of closed system. This is a turbine generator. That is a, whenever there is a temperatures are higher, 250 degrees centigrade or more than 200 degrees centigrade, the steam is separated from the water, and then that steam is directly utilized just like a normal steam turbine or steam-based power plant to run the turbine. And in this particular case, because we are using direct steam at a high pressure, 9 to 10 bars, or maybe sometimes even more bar pressure also, the efficiency of this steam-based power plant is more, and certainly automatically it is having comparatively more economical advantage also. This I think everybody knows, so I need not explain, but I can just say here that this is a steam-based binary steam-based turbine where we are getting steam at this particular place at temperature of 200 and more degrees centigrade. It follows the curve around 100 or 150 degrees, 100 degrees centigrade heat is utilized, and then it is sent to the condenser for cooling, and then the effluent water is either re-injected into the surface reservoir, or it is utilized again for some other geothermal uses. This is a geothermal based power plant in Japan. The geothermal based power plant, they are very clean, There not much of area is required for that. And because the steam is carried by the, we can say, pipeline, etc. There is not much of storage, stockyard, etc. required. So they are very neat and clean power plants. Some of the other uses of the geothermal, the first most important use is tourism. This is tourist activity in Iceland. And this is the tourist, a very, very well prepared tourism park of geothermal. As far as I remember, this is from China. Another is called as aquaculture. Here, different tanks we are seeing. These tanks are of different temperature, and the fishes or species of different variety, which are adaptable to the different temperature tanks, are reared here. And this sort of aquaculture is very popular, particularly in European countries. The third most important is greenhouse cultivation, particularly in places where there is a lot of, we can say, snowfall or very less of temperature in the winter. And this is used to cultivate, means floriculture as well as vegetables or such type of culture, which is much useful, particularly during the winter. And the winter period, almost 6 months, is utilized here to enhance the temperature of this particular greenhouse as well as to enhance the moisture content of the greenhouse so that we get continuous production. We have such type of greenhouses, particularly in Leh area. The third most important use is heating and cooling by geothermal source. This is a geothermal source here. The water is circulated in a, we can say, domestic house. During the winter, the temperature of water is high. That is why it heats the house. And then again, it is recirculated to the subsurface to collect the heat. Means water which is cooled again goes to the subsurface, collects the heat, and the circuit is complete and the house is continuously heated up. During summer, the cycle is reversed. And though it's not as good as air conditioning, but it certainly gives you comfortable cooling, but in the house, depending on the outside temperature, ambient temperature. So geothermal heat pump can be used for heating as well as cooling, depending on the season. Such type of heat pumps are very, very common in New Zealand. This is the place which I stayed in the Japan, and this is a hotel in Japan where they are utilizing this heat exchangers to cool this room during the summer season and for heating purposes during the winter season. So geothermal energy, particularly for space heating, is utilized for cooling as well as heating, both the purposes. So what are the resources in India? India, we have resources at Puga in Ladakh, Parvati Valley, and Tapoban in Himachal Pradesh. There one Manikaran field is very, very popular in the Himachal Pradesh. Then Tatapani in Chhattisgarh. Along the west coast, we get number of hot springs, that is Ganeshpuri, then Unavarekhed, then Tural, that is in Sindhudurg and Ratnagiri district. And the last one very popular is Rajapur. Near West Bengal, we are getting a very large geothermal field called as a Bakreshwar. And Bakreshwar is a place where we are getting helium gas emission also. So I will just give a very short, brief introduction of these fields. Puga Valley, Puga geothermal field is located 180 kilometers away from the Ladakh. And this is at 4,400 meter elevation. And it is a field with very high temperature, 84 degrees centigrade. We are getting water on the surface, that is a boiling point there. And the temperature of the resource is supposed to be around 200 or plus degrees centigrade. Presently, ONGC has taken a project to install 1 megawatt power plant here. So if this power plant completes, automatically it will be a start of geothermal field, geothermal power generation in India, and it will have a sort of, we can say, beacon to the other entrepreneurs also. This is a well, we had carried out drilling here in 2012, and this is a hot water well continuously flowing in that area. The sprout is going up almost 40 to 45 feet. So there is that much of pressure here. And now presently it is used for heating and cooling purposes, particularly by the nearby military camps. This is the area where this previous borehole was there and where we are finding this sprout geyseric activity. And here we can see all these white patches, they are the secondary deposition on the surface. The water, the flowing water is actually channeled, and it is nearby. The Sindhu river is there, and the water goes to Indus river, and ultimately it is drained off. But there is a lot of energy available in this area, the Ladakh area. So geothermal activity is there, and now we are taking up the project as early as possible. Another one is Manikaran in Himachal Pradesh. This is having temperature of around 96 degrees centigrade on the surface. And in the drilling, the temperature in the subsurface are expected to be around 180 degrees centigrade. There was one power plant also planned here, and experimental was done some 30 years ago, but because of landslide, it was destroyed, and that is why the area is now not taken up for further activity. Now there are again thought to take up some sort of power plant generation here, geothermal power plant, so that it will be utilized to the useful to the local population. Presently the main purpose here is tourist attraction, and there is one local Gurudwara which is using this geothermal hot energy, water energy for cooking in the kitchen. This is also one more very important aspect of the geothermal heat available, particularly in the interior part. In central India, that is Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh, we have geothermal hot springs at Ganeshpuri, Unavare Khed, Rajapur, and Tural, and one in Tatapani in Chhattisgarh. These are very promising fields actually. Tatapani in Chhattisgarh is located 95 degrees centigrade from the Bilaspur, Ambikapur, that is district headquarters. It is temperature of up to 97 degrees centigrade, and subsurface temperature is estimated to 180 to 200 degrees centigrade. And presently it is mostly used for the tourist attraction. But now MNRE has suggested that this power plant, this particular Tatapani geothermal field also may be developed as a demonstration geothermal power plant. This is the geothermal well flowing at the Tatapani. This was drilled in 1990 to 93, and still it is continuously flowing. The temperature of water on the surface is around 106 degrees centigrade. Deep interior, it is up to 130 degrees centigrade it was measured. And why we call it a renewable and sustainable energy, even after 30 years also, the temperature and flow, they are continuously same. So there is a continuous recharge of the water, continuous recharge of the heat, and that is why it is a sort of renewable and continuous energy available in the geothermal areas. This is the overall panoramic view of Tatapani geothermal field in Chhattisgarh. In West Coast area, we are getting hot springs at Koknare, then as I told you, Ganeshpuri, Unavare Khed in Ratnagiri district, and Tural in Ratnagiri district. The temperatures vary from 52 degrees centigrade in Ganeshpuri, 72 degrees centigrade in Unavare Khed, and 62 degrees centigrade in Tural. The reservoir, down deep reservoir temperatures are around 150 to 40 to 150 degrees centigrade. And it is found that though the resources are good, presently mostly these all the areas are mostly utilized for tourist attraction. We are putting a proposal to have a demonstration binary cycle power plant here, as well as tourist, we can say what we call as a spa or skin care centers, and particularly this being nearer to the seashore, these areas can be utilized for desalination. Desalination is of two types. A geothermal water is also contains some minerals, they can be removed. Otherwise, this can be utilized as a heat source for desalination of the seawater. So that proposal is presently under consideration, and certainly, no doubt in future, we'll be having some sort of geothermal development, particularly in Tural and Ganeshpuri, as far as I think. And there is possibility of a desalination plant also along the west coast. These are other places. The most important one of the places is Bakreshwar. Bakreshwar is a temple actually. Here we are getting hot springs of number of hot springs up to 65 to 70 degrees centigrade. And there is a lot of heavy discharge of the water. But one more important thing of Bakreshwar is it is having a lot of helium emission. And BARC has put a pilot plant to collect that helium from Bakreshwar, hot water in the Bakreshwar. There are other places in Telangana, Manuguru in Telangana, and Dholera and Unai in Gujarat, which are also promising hot springs. So what is the present status in India? Drilling is taken up in Puga in Ladakh by ONGC for establishing a power plant. Hot water is mostly used for cooking purposes in Manikaran. Extraction of helium is by BARC is planned, it's taking place at Bakreshwar. Tourist attraction schemes are presently at Tatapani, Ganeshpuri, Tural, Unavare in the west coast, and Bakreshwar in West Bengal. So if we go to Tural or particularly Ganeshpuri and Tural, they are very popular tourist attraction places. A 20 kilowatt power plant, geothermal based power plant is planned at Manuguru, Telangana. This is actually coal mines area, and Sigrani Collieries Coal Company Limited. They have taken initiative to put up a geothermal pilot power plant, demonstration power plant, because we are getting many of the boreholes they are drilled. They get hot water in coal mines area, and the temperature is recorded up to 80 to 85 degrees centigrade. So finally, it was decided that this sort of this hot water energy also can be utilized as a demonstration plant purpose. And there is one place at Dholera in Gujarat where the petroleum, Deen Dayal Petroleum University in Gandhinagar, they have tried to put a geothermal power plant by drilling almost a 1 kilometer deep borehole. But the temperatures were not sufficient for a binary cycle power plant. So now they have converted it into a hybrid power plant. So partially solar energy is utilized and partially geothermal water is utilized to have a 10 kilowatt demonstration power plant. So there is initially some initiation in utilization of geothermal energy in India now. It has started up. What are the possibilities? So what are the possibilities particularly in India? So we can have binary cycle power plant based on the temperature and geographical conditions in Tatapani in Chhattisgarh, Tural and Ganeshpuri in West Coast area, Manuguru in Telangana, Manikaran in Himachal Pradesh, Anhoni-Samoni in Madhya Pradesh, and some hot springs of NER. The hot springs of NER are not much actually studied, but there are possibilities particularly in the Arunachal Pradesh where we can put even a binary cycle power plant. The other most important is which can also be major source of earning, that is tourist attraction places at Puga, Ladakh, Tatapani, Dholera in Gujarat, West Coast area like Ganeshpuri, Unavare Khed, Tural, then in Maharashtra, Bakreshwar in West Bengal, Manuguru and Garampani in Telangana and Garampani in Assam. Which are the other direct, what we call as if the temperature, once it is water is used for the power generation, the effluent water comes with the less of temperature, maybe 80 degrees or 85 degrees. It can also be utilized for refrigeration, greenhouse cultivation in west coast of Maharashtra, Puga in Ladakh, Tatapani, and particularly Tatapani, then Joshimath in Uttarakhand. These hot springs can be utilized for cold storage as well as greenhouse cultivation. Extraction of gases like helium, it is possible at Bakreshwar. It is also possible because afterwards we have studied, we found that helium is found in some other places also. So it will be possible at Puga, it can be possible at Tatapani also. Then extraction of rare metal like cesium, borax, lithium particularly in Tatapani, Puga and Bakreshwar, and desalination plants at the west coast. So these are the possibilities. What is the requirement presently for development of geothermal energy? I am just in the last slides, so I think I can take hardly 1 or 2 minutes. Policy for exploration and development of the geothermal resources is required to be given by the government. Then exploration activity is a very capital intensive. That is why some incentive should be given for exploration by the government. That is the demand by the most of the developers. And then one of the most important thing, rate for the power purchase has to be decided and fixed for the geothermal power.
Yes.
Just 1 minute. Then geothermal projects may be considered as an R&D activity so that there will be custom and excise concessions.
Okay.
And demonstration plants may be encouraged to have a geothermal activity in different places. Private participation and international collaboration should be encouraged. These are the requirements for the development of geothermal energy in India. So finally, conclusion, geothermal energy is a renewable source which is environmental friendly and which is useful for the remote areas in hilly areas in India. This already we have discussed it. So I give my very sincere thanks to the Institution of Engineers and Tech Forum Pune for giving me opportunity to give this talk on the geothermal energy. And I am also thankful to Sri Vilas Rabade for providing all the support to me to deliver this talk. Thank you all.
Thank you, Doctor. Lovely presentation, and you have really touched a little explored area, having a very good potential. And as you rightly said, that the support from government also will be equally important. We will go for question and answer session. So those who want to ask question, please identify yourself and then ask the questions. So forum is open for question and answer.
Hello.
Please shoot out. Yeah.
Hello. Good morning, sir. Himanshu Gupta here from Renergizer Industries Private Limited.
Okay.
Sir, it was a wonderful presentation, an excellent presentation and very informative. My few questions, you have just touched upon the life of the plant. I just wanted to ask you about like some of the boreholes are running for maybe 50 years or 100 years. So is there any case study or something where we can see the life of the borehole compared to the life of the plant itself? Because mostly the machines and equipments have a life of 25 years or so, and then they have to be overhauled and replaced with the new thing. So is there any plant running outside India where this has taken place? And my second question is regarding the other outputs that you have touched upon, like the gases and rare metals. So is there any commercial activity going on outside India where these are being taken up at a commercial level, gases and rare metals both? Thank you, sir.
Now, as far as life is concerned, the life of plant is in any case depends on the life of the borehole. Okay. Boreholes are mostly continuous. There is some depending on the availability of the resource, particularly water. Some boreholes may dry up also, but generally 20 to 25 years borehole is there, and it requires no doubt continuous maintenance. Because what happens whenever there is water coming up, we are extracting the water. There is particularly rock pieces or sand also coming up along with it, and it tries to block the borehole. So maintenance of borehole is required. Such type of studies, they are done actually in foreign countries like New Zealand or USA. But I have seen particularly because I have studied in New Zealand, there is a one field called as Vairaki. For last 60 years, the field is going on, the power plant is going on, and the boreholes, they are continuously flowing. No doubt, it requires a regular maintenance. As far as byproducts are concerned, we, Geological Survey of India, had tried extraction of cesium in Puga, extraction of borax, particularly in Puga, as well as extraction in Manuguru also. The hot water was there, so they used to extract the borax also there. And in foreign countries, sulfur extraction and helium extraction is also quite common. Particularly helium, we can try it on the commercial basis in India, because all the geothermal water that contains particularly different type of dissolved gases, and helium is a inert gas, so it is comparatively easier to separate from other gases. And we are already extracting the helium from the Bakreshwar. So such type of activity can be taken in some other fields also. But extraction of we can say sulfur, borax, cesium, it is going on as a byproduct basis in other countries also.
Hello,
Yes,
I'm Anil Chaitanya from Tech Forum.
yes.
Sir, thank you for wonderful information. This was a really excellent topic and subject. We are lucky enough and fortunate enough that ONGC ex-director Dr. Sanjeev Katti is here today with us. So I request Dr. Sanjeev Katti to introduce yourself. He was himself involved in Puga Valley projects and some other project while working through ONGC. So I request Dr. Sanjeev Katti to please give your comments on today's presentations. Kindly introduce yourself also. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, this is, am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay, this is Dr. Sanjeev Katti, former
Yes.
Director General of ONGC Energy
हो.
Center.
आम्ही निघालो की फोन करतो.
Yeah, please mute your mic. Yeah, word. Dr.
Continue,
Katti.
please continue.
Yeah, please
So,
continue.
we surveyed all the sites within India and
Yes.
picked 3 of them to go further, of which the number 1 was Puga Valley. And I signed on behalf of ONGC Energy Center the first MOU with the Ladakh authorities. This was last February. And I think recently, like in the last 2-3 weeks, they have found quite good steam. We call it blowout at the drilling at pretty low high depth. Our plan, our expected temperature is about 180 degrees C at 500 meters. So we are going to go down up to that. Now, let me add the technology part. GSI and others, also United Nations, UNDP, and so on, had done above ground surveys. Most of them. The development of any geothermal field is very similar to development of oil and gas field. That is where our expertise from ONGC, and worldwide we are collaborating with the Iceland Geo Survey from Iceland. As you may know, Iceland gets 60% of its energy from geothermal resources, the most advanced place, and that's where we are collaborating with. But before we can start commercial exploitation and so forth, it's very similar to oil and gas. You have to figure out how much is the total reservoir and what is the potential. So size of the reservoir and also pressure, temperature, and at which the rate at which it can be produced, which is decides the commercial feasibility of any project. Another advantage for Ladakh project is that the after generation of power using steam turbine primarily, electricity, whatever the water that is coming out as exhaust from the steam turbine, which at other places we can't find much use. You are talking about doing organic Rankine cycle to generate more electricity, let's say up to 80 degrees, and that 80 degrees hot water can be used for space heating in Ladakh and cold climates, which is what Iceland is also doing, which is an added benefit that space heating at homes, hospitals, big hotels, etc. Plus, you can have greenhouses, heated greenhouses that will revolutionize the availability of fresh vegetables and fruits. We are working with Bihar, which is high altitude research arm of DRDO, Defense Research and Development Organization. So it is a multifaceted project that is there in Puga Valley, and we are looking at some of my talks on this for like an hour or so are on YouTube for those who are interested. So we are looking at Ladakh ka Sarvangin Vikas with this Ladakh project. We are very fortunate that even at a depth of 50 to 100 meters, we have got 100 degrees steam blowout. And as you know, we are doing this at height, which is for layman is equivalent to the base camp of the Mount Everest. So you can imagine the kind of things, difficulties that we face there. In general, geothermal energy is the best 24/7 energy. Is the only energy that is renewable, carbonless, zero carbon basically, and so on. It has a lot of advantages, but at the same time, you need to get sufficient size of the reservoir, also the permeability and so on of the rock or the formation has to be correct so that you can get the steam or hot water out. If you have temperature at 60 degrees, 80 degrees, it is not commercially feasible to use that for at least generating electricity. That can be used. So there are, it should be country's priority to check out all so we have done, we have picked 3 sites. Now let us see how far it can, further it can go. But 60 degrees and 80 degrees hot water hardly can be used for electricity. That is the reason why we are not developing it at many places or priority wise. I think it is a good source of energy. It is also green energy, and we should be developing it at wherever feasible commercially. And as I said, technically we are using the reservoir engineering principles that are used in oil and gas reservoirs, petroleum engineering for this purpose. We are using the same simulation and modeling approach for characterizing the reservoir. To give you idea of the cost, most of the cost is in the reservoir estimation, reservoir potential estimation and all that with actual drilling. Most of the surveys that have been done, as I said, are above ground surveys, MTS surveys and a bunch of others. But unless you actually drill and get the depth, width and so on, the volume of the reservoir and the potential further commercial activity. So the cost of developing field is 80%. Once you have put up the plant, a plant above ground, which is basically steam turbine or other things that you are adding, is only 20%. First phase for drilling 2 wells, it cost is about 15 to 20 crore rupees, and that includes 1 megawatt, 1 to 2 megawatt demo or pilot, whatever you want to call, steam turbine. Phase 2 that we have is coming to about 200 crores, and that will produce 10 to 20 megawatt. That includes the demonstration, and the final one with the for if the reservoir predictions that we are doing now based on above ground and some in depth, that cost will go to 2,000 crores. But once you have the operating cost is minimal, and this will open up, this is the first maiden geothermal resource that we are developing. So whatever we learn from here, we will have the expertise and so on when we go to the next phases. So I see a very bright future for geothermal, and I hats off to all the people who have started working on this since the beginning in the 70s and 80s. We had one Dr. Afsar. He was also GSI. I think he was like a deputy director or director, and he is a consultant to this project. He knows everything that happened since like 70, 80s. So we are familiar with what previous work also has been done. I think the country needs to really put proper emphasis on priority for geothermal. One other technical fact I would add, and this is very difficult for most people again, when we compare power generation or power plant, we are talking about 1 megawatt geothermal supplies the same actual electricity round the clock that a 5 megawatt solar produces. 1:5 is the equivalent. So a 20 megawatt geothermal is equal to 100 megawatt of solar. And the reason is I can give you lots of details. The reason is very simple. Solar energy is available 8 hours per day on an average, and nothing during rainy season. So 2-3 months when there is no sun and so forth. So that is a factor of 3 right there. And the solar intensity starts very low at sunrise, goes to peak around 12 to 1, and then comes down. So if you take, we are always designing the plants, solar plants or any plants, for the peak load, which means our capacity or the design of the plant is for the highest, that is during the peak hours. And that makes it, if you take average, that makes it that other factor. That's why in practice the equivalence 1 megawatt geothermal is equal to 5 megawatt of solar, and you can compare similarly. So I think there is a lot of misunderstanding. Most people don't know, at least what I found whenever I talk, most people don't know these equivalents of different energies. In same thing about wind, you are again designing the wind turbines for the peak wind, which is there maybe a few hours per day.
Sir, thank you very much for very important information.
But I think geothermal has a good potential, and with proper policies and incentives, we should definitely make good progress in geothermal.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Really.
Here, actually, just 1 minute. Actually,
Yeah.
because of time constraint, I have not dealt detail in many of the aspects. But I have worked in Chumathang area also, that is in Ladakh, nearer to Puga. And we have found that technically as well as economically, the resource is actually viable. And based on that only further development has been taken up in that area. So we have quite a good resource, particularly in Ladakh, in Tatapani also.
Okay, thank you, thank you very much, Dr. Katti and Dr. Sarolkar. Lovely presentation, and it really evoked a lot of thoughts and discussions. I think we have over exceeded the time limit, but it was I didn't stop because it was necessary to get some inputs from the horse's mouth who have worked in the field. I would request Dr. Sanjay Zope to make his comments on behalf of Institution of Engineers, Pune Local Center. Dr. Sanjay Zope, are you there? Oh, he looks. Hello. Okay, he's not there. I must thank both of you for making this topic very interesting by question and answer, and also Mr. Gupta, who has raised a very valid question. We will not take up more questions. Probably you all can raise it, and we will request Dr. Sarolkar to answer individually, since we have consumed a lot of time. So thanks a lot, all the participants.
Sir, just a quick comment. Himanshu Gupta here from Renergizer Industries Private Limited. Dr. Sanjeev, I would really like to get in touch with you, sir. We are working on the 5 kilowatt demonstration plant at Shriram Institute in Delhi. And I would like to invite you, sir, if you are available. We are also working on 20 kilowatt geothermal power plant in Manuguru, Telangana. So I would really like to get in touch with you, Dr. Sanjeev, if you are available, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
You get in touch with Anil Chaitanya, and then he will give you my contact details.
Yeah. Through Tech Forum, we will organize this meeting, sir. Thank you for showing interest, Himanshu, sir. Sir, please
and
continue.
I'll be happy to discuss at least. Then we'll see what further.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, friends, thank you. I think we can't take up any more questions. So we have come to an end of very interesting interactions, a lovely presentation, and lovely comments from Dr. Katti. Friends, next presentation will be on 15th, as I told you, by Mr. Vinod Joshi, and it will be about the product development, and it will be live at PMA Hall, Pune Management Association.